Welcome back. Here with us on Urban Debate, I am Hina Gambhir. What is the deal with the word no in India, especially when it's a woman saying it? When she expects a man to accept it? And why does India remain one of the reluctant 36 nations in the world to protect a woman's no? Why is it a worst-kept household secret that marital rape is most common? It is a repugnant form of masochism, hidden behind the romanticized parda of marriage. Social practices and legal codes in India are mutually and literally enforcing rape. Rape is rape, be it a stranger rape, date rape, or marital rape. The Delhi High Court, viewers, is hearing petitions not pleading, but literally begging for criminalization of marital rape. As per Section 375 of the Indian Penal Code, rape is non-consensual sexual intercourse with a woman. But this exempts husbands from any kind of punishment if they ignore the wife's no, barring if the wife is above the age of 15 years. Now, this case has been going on since 2016-17. In 2017, Centre's affidavit in this case opposed criminalization of marital rape, claiming that it would destabilize the institution of marriage and could become a tool for harassing husbands. But suddenly, there is some hope at the end of the dark, long legal tunnel. The Delhi High Court 3 days ago asked, sex workers have right to say no to customers. Can married women not have this right against husband? In a fresh response, the centre has told the court that it is taking steps to reform the Indian Penal Code and other laws. The matter will now be heard on Monday, and tonight on Urban Debate, we will try to find who is against a law that will make men respect a woman's no. The criteria of women's consent can't be weakened by exemptions. Joining us on the broadcast this evening are my guests. We have Ranjana Kumari, women's activist, director of the CSR and chairwoman WPC. We have Lalita Kumar Mangalam, former chairperson, NCW, joining us. Geeta Luthra, senior advocate, Supreme Court of India. Nirmal Kaur, former DGP, Uttarakhand. I appreciate all of you for joining us here on Urban Debate on this very, very issue this evening. Geeta Luthra, I want to begin the discussion with you. India is one of the 36 countries in the world where marital rape is not criminalized. We are still seeing a situation where this matter is being discussed in Delhi High Court. If the argument so far has been that it will destabilize the institution of marriage, I want to ask you, then why nobody thinks about protecting the wife in the marriage if she's being destabilized? Ma'am, can you unmute yourself?
You're right. I don't buy the argument that it will destabilize marriage. The question in India is only one. So there is no one, I think, who would disagree that marital rape is a strict no-no. So the question is only with regard to criminalization. Will it destabilize marriage? I don't think it will destabilize marriage. I only think that in India, because we are a country that does not ensure proper investigation, we have to ensure that investigation is thorough if there is a case of marital rape, and particularly if it was over a long period of time and after many years of discord, one of the allegations made is marital rape, then the investigation should be thorough. I don't think that it is not. The law, ultimately, look at the Domestic Violence Act. The Domestic Violence Act says sexual cruelty, physical cruelty, mental cruelty, verbal cruelty, all economic cruelty are all domestic violence. So it recognizes sexual violence as domestic violence. But what it is not doing is it has yet not brought it under the Indian Penal Code as a rape offense under 375.
Ms. Ranjana, if marital rape is a strict no-no, as Ms. Luthra told us, if sexual violence is recognized as domestic violence in the country, then why it is not criminalized in India?
Well, there are three aspects to the whole question. It is not that simple. There are deeper, reasons, and also we have to understand that. One, that Indian society, whether it is in many countries or not, that's not none of our concerns. It has to be in India because, India, the consent of a woman is never considered in marriage. Because once you are given in marriage, then it is man's right over you and your body as a woman. So that's where the problem lies. That if there is, who's going to really talk about it? Who's going to really prove it? How will it really work? And I remember having presented to Verma Commission when we were talking about various issues to be incorporated. This was one of the issues that we argued most, that it should be really criminalized, and marital rape. And then, of course, including Justice Verma, everybody was like of the opinion that our parliament is not going to consider this. And that's precisely what happened. Because so far, men think their dominance and control over women's bodies will get challenged and will get into the domain of law. And that is why, some of the very senior members at that point of time, I remember very clearly told me that, do you want to send police now in the bedrooms? Of course, when you are engaging in offense inside the bedroom, certainly the police will enter the bedroom, or the law will enter the bedroom, or state will enter the bedroom. So I think this is something, so that's one of the things. Secondly, also this issue of child marriages. There are so many children who are getting married, who have gotten married, and there is no question of this little girl giving any kind of consent or agreeing to any kind of sexual relationship. Forget about sexual violence that happens in that relationship. So that also is another aspect of the whole problem at the moment. And finally, that, the insensitive justice delivery system, which is around us. And you just saw that in the case of, even just today, the judgment from the church came that, about the church case came that, they held the priest innocent, and also they just dismissed the case. So I think in those kind of systems, who is going to investigate, and how will we really arrive at the real issue, and how will women get justice is a big question before me. But in no circumstances we should not try to leave this out of the legal domain. We should criminalize rape in marriage because it happens at large, and women are silent about it. The moment they will have some legal tool to deal with it, certainly they will come out with the issue.
Okay. Nirmal Kaur, you are former DGP Jharkhand. In your opinion, why does it remain a grey area in India? You must have come across many such cases. Could you just tell us what is the current state of affairs as far as this issue on the ground is concerned, because this is not criminalized?
I think the issue is largely related to our patriarchal society. We are highly patriarchal still, and empowerment somehow, we don't see it as empowering a woman to give her right over making her own decisions or to give her control over her own body. She's always seen in a subservient position in the society, especially in relation to her husband. She's very subservient, and she cannot say no to anything, including to her body, or including to assert her reproductive rights, when to have a child, if to have a child or not, if to have more children or not. It is somehow, these decisions are never a woman's. And a woman doesn't have any right over her own body. That is our patriarchy still. And, it will be surprising. It really is surprising that we talk of the West. We say in almost all the Western countries, marital rape is criminalized. But there also, the police is highly reluctant. There's a lack of awareness. If not outright refusal, they are highly reluctant to register a marital rape, as a crime. And the issue is, it's almost always a form of chronic violence. It's a chronic violence on the woman, which is kind of indicative of an abusive relationship. So that abusive relationship, it has a, very certain repetitive patterns, universally recognized in India or in Africa or in a small island anywhere or in Manhattan. You can recognize the patterns of that, man-woman abusive relationship. And marital rape is always a part, you'll see that it is a chronic kind of a thing. It is not a one-time thing which you can cover under assault and battery or sexual harassment or cruelty to a woman like 498A. These are, but somehow the Indian Parliament law commissions have been against it. Again, there was a parliamentary standing committee. They also have not supported it. But the Indian mindset is such, our society is such that we do not even, we think that, once you are married, if you're married to a man, you have no right to say no to anything, leave alone, sex, which is such a, basis of marriage or whatever, which keeps the marriage running. So, we have this great problem, not only societal thinking, societal views, lack of literacy. Most of the women are not financially independent. They lack financial independence and they lack empowerment in every sense of the word. And then moreover, even the police lack sense. Even if you were to make it a crime, as they are talking, let's criminalize it. Police is overburdened as it is. The actual rapes also 25%, not even 25% of the rapes are successfully convicted. They end up in charge sheets, and even when they do end up in charge sheets, like my previous speaker was talking of today's verdict, they are largely acquitted for various reasons, lack of evidence, prosecution, and whatever. And I don't think our prosecution will lead to sensitize our prosecution, will lead to sensitize our society, and most important of all, sensitize the women themselves.
Where should the victims of marital rape really go?
Sorry?
Ms. Lalita Kumar Mangalam, you've been former NCW chief. Where should these victims of marital rape really go? And in your opinion, why does it remain a grey area in the country even now when there is some bit of awareness that's coming? This issue is being debated for a very, very long time. Why do you think the courts so far have been reluctant? Because in 2015 also a petition was filed by a woman and that was dismissed by the Supreme Court, citing that law is not going to change for one woman. Why is there this reluctance?
Yeah, I agree with both Nirmalji and Anjanaji. Just bringing in a law is not enough. The law is certainly needed. Marital rape is something that should not and cannot be tolerated. But most people in India, regardless of their gender, think and agree with the fact that after marriage, a woman has no right to say no to her husband. Now, whatever the four of us, the five of us on this channel, and there are many others like us who agree that a man cannot force his wife to have sex, and forcing somebody to have sex is ultimately rape. The fact is that in every level of society, amongst women themselves, especially married women, amongst the entire justice system, starting with the police, the first person you meet, you go to complain to is at the police station. Your neighbors, your relatives, your friends, your colleagues, almost everybody whom you come across will say that, let it go. After all, he's your husband. That whole thinking has to change. But I feel very strongly that if you could bring a law in, and it's going to be a very long, drawn out, very painful process, because at every process, there will be people who say that marriage is sacrosanct and we should not interfere in the personal affairs. I've heard this so many times, between a man and his wife or a woman and her husband. If you can bring in a law, then it is a first step. The same thing was said about many, many laws that were brought over the centuries, whether it was sati, widow, remarriage, recently the Muslim Teen Talaq law, etc., etc. But and I think we should do it, it's about time that one understands that every woman, regardless of age or caste or creed or whatever it is, economic status, has the right to say no to even her husband. And I use the word even her husband as a sort of sop to everybody out there who will be, with cudgels drawn to beat me down. Because it's a very, politic thing for me to say. I'm a politician, and most people do not want to upset the status quo of an extraordinarily patriarchal society in India. We sometimes pat ourselves on our back saying that, oh, no, we are much better than other countries. But as Ranjana ji said, I don't live in other countries. I live in India, and people like her and me have been struggling for, decades to see some sort of change. Yes, change has come, but change has often been pushed through, or at least initiatedly. The initiation was pushed through when a tough and a very well thought out law is bringing in. Now, there will be the argument laws can be misused. All laws are misused. I agree. But then, like our advocate said, we need to have extraordinarily good and well-trained investigative officers who look into such cases when complaints are made. But it's not right to say that a law can be misused, therefore the law should never be brought in. And Ranjana ji mentioned the Mulakkal case today. That's such a shameful verdict that's come out. All religions organizations are so powerful, not just in India, all over the world, that many people say that it was just, expected that in a small trial court in Kerala, the power and the fear of the church will prevent that poor lady from getting justice. But leave that aside. That's a different question and a different issue. Here we are talking about something where, like you said, the first thing they'll say is, how can you intervene in the privacy of a relationship? But when a woman cries rape, it means that she needs help so desperately that it is the job of those who provide justice to intervene and see that she gets justice. Most women don't complain about rape. Most rapes go underreported, over 90% even today all over the world, including India. And what we here see is not even the tip of the iceberg. So if a wife says that, look, I'm being raped, it's almost very, very, very rare that she's doing it as a sort of revenge petition. And if she is in fact doing it something like that, then the IO has to be sensitive enough and well clued in, that is well trained, whatever the words one wants to use here, to find the truth.
Well-trained investigation officers clearly are needed, but first step clearly, Ms. Lalita Kumar Mangalam, you believe that first step clearly is going to be the law. Ms. Geeta Luthra, now, like I cited this 2015, a case in Supreme Court, wherein the Supreme Court cited that, a law can't really change for one woman. But now the kind of observations that have come from the Delhi High Court, which center in a way trying to suggest that, there could be some change in its view. Because in 2017, Centre had opposed criminalizing marital rape, but now it has said during the arguments that a constructive approach or a forward approach involving stakeholders is something that it is looking at. Do you see hope now? You'll have to unmute yourself, ma'am.
See, the Verma Commission and very erudite people who formed it looked at it in depth, were very tempted to include it, but did not finally include it. They made otherwise far-reaching changes. The Supreme Court has looked at it and said it was hesitant. After that, there have been many judgments, the right to live with dignity judgment, the Joseph Shine judgment. All these judgments have resulted in this concept which has expanded of the right to live with dignity and the right to privacy. So these expansion of these concepts could help in the court taking a different view. Even though one argument that has been presented is, well, we've not legalized it. We haven't criminalized it, but we haven't legalized it. So we are saying that it is sexual violence under Section 326. We are saying it could possibly be an offense under 377. We are saying it's an offense under 498A, which is marital cruelty. But are we ready to say that marital rape should have the same level of punishment? So the question is, courts may be slightly slow to tread because they may again say that this is for Parliament to enact. The argument that is being given by the petitioners is very attractive. You don't have to enact anything. You have to just say that the exception should be struck down as being violative of Article 14, 15, and 21. So that's very attractive.
Yeah, I think I agree. Yeah.
Are you hopeful, Ms. Ranjana Kumari, after listening to the arguments?
Well, the whole politics of marriage is weaved around controlling female sexuality. And I've done very intensive work on how Hindu religious traditions control women's sexuality from being from a small girl to teenage to even a married woman, and also as a widow and later part of her life if she's rendered single. How so much of effort is made by so many of customary practices, norms and values to control her sexuality. And that is the reason why, this has become such a difficult issue for so many men in this patriarchal system, for them to understand it, that, what it is for a woman to go into sexual relationship without her consent, even if it is with her own husband. Now, this is really something which has to go down in their understanding. And I would think that what is very important at this stage is to really openly discuss it. And let's get into a very, very open discussion on this whole issue. And before bringing the law, we need to really, really raise it into the society. And of course, eventually we have to get this law in place. There is no question, because so many women are suffering on this account, and so many women, especially who come to our centers complaining about their violence against them, has definitely suffered in some or the other form of sexual violence in marriage. So marital rape is a reality. It is an issue, and women are suffering due to this account. So, but then all our parliament members must understand this, that this needs to be legislated. And for that, a very open debate is needed. And there is no question of, women being controlled the way they have been controlled. Look at every rules and regulation through marriage. All those 7,
in fact, as per reports, Ms. Ranjana Kumari, 1 in every 3 women. As per reports, Ms. Ranjana Kumari, 1 in every 3 women in India between 15 to 49 who have been ever married have actually stated that they have experienced some kind of violence from their spouses, something, that maybe has not even been reported. Now, why I earlier compared India's condition with other 36 countries, 35 countries where this is not criminalized was because we all know that Indian penal laws, in fact, were handed over to us by the British. In UK also, now this crime, it is a crime for a husband to rape his wife, but not in India. That was the reason why I compared it to how India's situation is as compared to other countries. Britishers gave us these, Indian penal laws, and today we are far behind.
No, but, without changing
Okay, please go ahead.
May I speak? Can I speak now?
Yes, Ms. Nirmal Kaur.
I was talking of the societal mindset. The mindset of our society is like the dark ages. I mean, recently, I think it was a judge who said, "Oh, marry the rapist," as if that would set everything right. You're talking of criminalizing marital rape here, and out there, the whole world, the whole lot of people in the society think that including sometimes the girl's own parents, that if she marries the rapist, somehow it is going to make everything all right. I have known historically there have been laws, in many tribal societies and all, where marrying the rapist was somehow condoning the rape. But, in our own society, I think, I don't remember the details, but last year sometime there was a judge in one of the district courts or subdivisional courts where he said, you marry the rapist and, jaise ki panchayati kara raha hai bitha ke. I mean, like, what is this? How can marrying the rapist make everything all right? You are condemning the girl to a lifetime of indignity, a lifetime of violence, a lifetime of living with a cruel person, a lifetime of being violated. This is our mindset. Our society mindset is so bad that, I mean, here we sit, in our comfort zones talking of marital rape and criminalizing marital rape. But, there are people, our education level, our kind of people who think that marrying the rapist is somehow, a way out of getting out of rape, or, that is going to set everything all right for the girl, for that man. It's not a crime anymore. And
That's
also
an
for the
important point
society.
that you're making,
and everyone
Ms.
lives
Nirmal Kaur.
happily ever after.
Yes, that's an important point that you have raised in the debate. And Ms. Lalita Kumar Mangalam, that's a valid point. Again, brings me back to the question that I asked earlier. Why do courts here so far have believed that rape can't happen to a married woman by the husband? It seems that's the perception, that's the view, and maybe that's the reason why it has not been criminalized so far. Nobody seems to be taking it very seriously.
Because contrary to what many of us say or think, that judges are also human beings and they're as patriarchal as anybody else in society, regardless of their gender sometimes. So it's not as if judges, come from Mars and therefore they have a different mindset. Most judges do not understand violence against women, and most judges have the same sort of mindset that that came up with the Mulakal verdict today. So. And a lot of people will tell you that Indian law, and this is true, Indian law is based on evidence. So evidence is also going to be a major I4C, it's going to be a major barrier even if such a law is brought in. But like I said, just because something is difficult, it does not mean that we should not have it. Agreed, the law must be very sensitive to both sides, but we have to understand that women who say they are being raped, 99.9%, or have faced sexual violence from their husbands, do not do it unless they are under really severe, pressure in many ways. They just can't take it anymore. That's when most women come out and say that I've been raped, because most rapes still take place between people who know the victim very well. The Nirbhayas and those sort of cases, they are not, like I said, not even the tip of the iceberg. And we must understand that rape is such a sensitive issue, apart from the sheer degree and the sort of demeaning of the woman who's being raped even today in society. What do most families want to hide rape for? Because the entire society will say that she's bad character, that she is at fault. Why did she go here? What did she wear? Why did she do this? Why did she do that? People just don't talk about men being taught to be more respectful of women. There is very little respect for women even today. We, as our DGP just said, that, we sit in our comfort zones. We are really amongst the most lucky of women, even especially in this country. The vast majority of women don't have access to even information or knowledge or the sort of, empowerment that women like us have. What do we do for them? The law should be for, the majority of people in this country, not the few lucky ones who may have escaped, at least partially, if not totally, the yoke of, the really sort of demeaning, terribly almost killing yoke of patriarchy that exists in this society. As she said, even today, people say that marry your rapist, everything is over. And
Yes.
I mean, how can somebody say something like that? But it is said, even now. And many people will talk very loudly and argue with great number of, reasons to prove that they are right. So the concept itself of rape, forget about marital rape, is still under discussion today. Yes, after Nirbhaya, the younger generation has changed, thankfully.
Okay, I want to give the last word now to Ms. Geeta
Struggle.
Luthra, who wanted to come in.
But I think we all need
Okay.
much better training across the entire judicial system.
So one of the
going by what you're
possibilities-
saying, that Ms. Geeta Luthra, would a law even make any difference then? Would a law even make any difference if the mindset doesn't change simultaneously?
See, that's not true. Even, I'm sorry, I seem to have a bad throat. I think the law is actually very often ahead of the mindset. In India, we've seen that the laws come sometimes ahead of the mindset because it helps to frame the mindset to become more progressive. So we can't really think. So the only issue is you bring in marital rape, but you have also simultaneously, and this has been a crying need, bring in better tools of investigation. The two have to go side by side. The only reason I feel that Verma committee was hesitant was because they didn't want that this becoming a reason for marriages which were already broken down to harm the institution.
Okay.
So we can't look at it like that because there are many laws which are being abused. We have to ensure that laws, if there is an abuse of laws, there is prosecution. We have also to ensure that laws should be in keeping with CEDAW, in keeping with the century that we are living in and with the times that we are living in. And if we are saying that there is a right to live in dignity, then it presupposes that that dignity should criminalize something which is so abusive of dignity while ensuring that. So
Absolutely.
one of the things I feel we need to do is you have to grade the punishment in rape. So there will be cases where it arises out of alleged consensual relationship, non-consensual or consensual. There will be cases of marital rape. There will be cases of stranger, or POCSO is completely a different, and obviously, I mean, if heinous goes, all of
Rightly
it is
said.
heinous. But this
I
could be...
Absolutely.
I think we should make one statement very clear here that we
Very quickly, ma'am.
we all support legislating rape in marriage, criminalizing it, and also we are looking forward to the judgment, which is really, as Geeta Luthra said, is very simple. You just have to see in the context of Article 14, 15, I mean, like the articles of rights in our constitution. So hopefully the court will take a very positive view on it and government will move on it. And we do need a law at this stage to criminalize rape in marriage.
Well, I think we all seem to agree that law is the need of the hour. It needs to be criminalized. We'll all keep our eyes on what comes out of the Delhi High Court when the hearing resumes on Monday. I appreciate all of you wonderful women for joining us here on Urban Debate this evening on Mirror Now. Heading into another very, very short break. There's lots lined up for you on the other side as well, including the latest with tennis star Novak Djokovic. You definitely would not like to miss this one. Stay with us.